Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Young at Heart. I'm Tammy Murray, the Director of Elder Affairs at the Kingston Council on Aging. And today I am joined by Dave Corman, who's the founder and president of Generations Asset Preservation in Braintree. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Sure. I actually met Dave through a business associate who began working with him. And when they came in and introduced their product to me, I was amazed. I think it's something that a lot of families need that don't really know that they need. And although I don't understand all of it, which I'll be learning a lot more with you today, Dave's here to fill us in on what they do and why. So first, I guess I'd like to ask you how you got into this business.
Well, I realized I wasn't going to be the starting third baseman for the Red Sox. I had to have a backup plan. So my background's in financial planning. And I was doing that for about 15, 18 years or so. And I met an elder law attorney who asked me to sit in on some appointments. This was about 25 years ago when elder law was just starting. And now it's a real burgeoning cottage industry. And before, there weren't that many practitioners of elder law. Now there are. And so I loved it. I had the tax and financial planning background. He didn't. Mm-hmm. So there's always a financial and legal component to what we do. And then I'll explain there's also a healthcare component. But so he had the legal expertise. I had the financial and tax expertise. And we kind of, without officially getting married, we kind of like got together and melded the two disciplines, and it worked out really well.
So you started this business in 2011.
Yeah, but I had been doing, I was with him this lawyer for 10 years.
Yeah.
Then I had another similar business for 10 years and then sold that and have owned Generations and founded Generations 5 years ago.
That's great. So when I hear everything that you're talking about, I think of the people that come into my office and they're in need of help now. They want to go to a nursing home or assisted care, or they need home care. And a lot of times you find that even though they think that they planned for this, they don't have the funding or the information to move forward with the plan.
Right.
So I think it's really important to get the planning done early, and as I've read in some of your documentation, to involve the family in the decision making and financial components of that. So I guess we could start simply by saying, let's say I come in and I have my, I'm going to call her elderly, she's going to kill me,
yeah,
mother that lives in my home.
Yeah.
Yeah, my senior mom, who has more energy than me.
Mature, yeah.
So although I would love for her to live forever in our home,
right.
I don't know what she would need, when, and how that would affect our finances. So we would come in and see you and start where?
Well, so specific like to your mom's situation, so she's somewhat healthy, she's fairly healthy and all that. So it all depends upon what her goals and objectives are. There's always a legal component to what we do, a financial component, and a healthcare component. Mm-hmm. So let's say she's fairly healthy. You want to take a look at, we start with the legal documents. What do you have in place? Are they older documents? If they are, do they still do what it's supposed to do? Mm-hmm. Have things changed? Circumstances change. So what we do is, the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. We take a look at the documents, and if they're good, great. If not, if they need updating, we'll update documents. So we're talking about wills, trusts, powers of attorney, healthcare proxies, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So where we can make some changes or tweak things or even sometimes blow things up, we will. And then there's the financial piece. So what are you trying to accomplish? Are you concerned that maybe someday you'll wind up in a nursing home or needing long-term care? If that's the case, then we have to do some strategic planning in terms of structuring or restructuring assets to be able to protect them.
And I don't
that's really open-ended, but yeah.
No, I'm just thinking of where do you even start with that. So it's great that you even can explain to people, like, so all right, we're sitting here and I'm like, okay, what does my mom have for assets? Like, go through my head.
Right.
So is it more geared for people that own a home, or say it's something like a situation like mine? My mom lives in my home, we're partners in the home.
How's that working? We'll talk later.
We'll talk later on another show. Yeah. But yeah, so if if people aren't sure what they even have, you're able
Right.
to look through all of their stuff and guide them through that aspect as well.
Yeah, it's all over the map. So let's say your mom's fairly healthy. There's a look back. You just can't go, let's say, God forbid, something down the road, something happens to your mom. You just can't, the day before, transfer assets because of the 5-year look back. Most
Right.
people are aware that there's some sort of a look back. Now it's a 5-year look back for just giving money away or trusts, irrevocable trusts, because revocable trusts don't work. So for somebody like your mom, we would say, are you worried about long-term care? If so, let's talk about, at least have a conversation about getting some of the assets out of your name. Are you comfortable getting some assets out of your name? And then if they're saying, well, maybe or maybe not, or yeah, then we can have a discussion. And what we do is we take a look at like buckets of money. And the first bucket of money is, what do you feel comfortable keeping in your name? So what do you feel comfortable, leaving for mad money? If you want to go on vacation, you don't want to be running to your daughter every time
Right.
you want to go out to dinner or go on vacation or do this or do that. So you want to have enough money to live on comfortably. And then if you have enough money, maybe you can get some of the money out of your name, and that'll get the 5-year look back started.
Yeah, that's something we think about all the time. I think for like 10 years we've been saying, hey, we should really start getting things out of your name, and we still haven't. So
Yeah,
I'm going
right.
to be one of those families that I talk about and say I'm going to walk into my own office
There you go.
with no planning whatsoever. And then, so the 5-year look back has to do with Medicare, correct? Is
Medicaid.
That
So
Medicaid?
people often confuse Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is essentially, it does some other things, but it's essentially health insurance for people 65 and older. If you qualify, if you have certain medical conditions, it can be under 65. But for our purposes, 65 and older, that's health insurance. Medicaid is a governmental program. It does a lot of things, but for our purposes, for seniors, it pays for long-term care. So either long-term care like in a nursing home, or some, not a lot of care, maybe 15 to 25 hours a week of care in the house. It's called community Medicaid. So Medicaid, it's a means-tested program. You have to qualify for it. So you don't just, you don't just apply for it, get the benefits and all that. So it's means tested. You have to have X amount of assets, a maximum amount of assets, and there's some income levels as well.
And then that, just my mind again, long-term care. There's that sort of long-term care, and then there's like long-term care through different insurance companies.
Yeah, well,
correct? So-
not to be confused with long-term care insurance. That's a
Okay.
whole different animal. Yeah. So when we talk about long-term care, it's really long-term care, needing long-term care, mostly in a nursing home. But again, they'll pay for people to come in like in a like at home setting or assisted living even. But for most people, it's in a nursing home, which run 12, 13,000 a month on average now.
Nursing homes, yeah.
Nursing homes do.
Yeah, and home care can be up there pretty much as well.
I'm actually my own adult child client because my mom had a stroke about 2 months ago, and we're paying $17,000 a month for home health care. So it gets very expensive. It's actually more expensive than nursing home care, 24/7 home health care.
Yeah, and sorry to hear about your mom.
Thank you.
First of all, and I hope she's doing all right.
Thank you.
But exactly, so now let me ask you, did you pre-plan for
We
this
did.
type of event?
We did. So that exact scenario. So we took a bunch of assets. My dad passed away several years ago, and 10 years ago we got them to do the planning, and they got the house out of their name into a type of a trust. We got some assets out of their name. So my mother kept a good chunk of money, which is really it's her money, so that's what it's being used for. So we got X amount of money out of their name, but kept a good chunk in her name, and now she's using it for her care.
Which is great, and it's great that she gets to stay at home. In my internship, we do home care, and it's good to be able to see these people not have to leave. A lot of them don't want to leave home, and then when
Right.
they do, it seems that they go downhill a little bit, getting used to their new surroundings. So
Right.
it's great that you are able to do that, and that you knew to plan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can get into this about long-term care insurance, but do you have to be young to start buying that? Like, should I start tomorrow and start paying into that, or is it too late for my mom to start paying into it? How does that all?
So I don't know how old your mom is. Can we reveal that?
She's in her 70s.
She's in, okay. So here, that industry has evolved over the years, and it's actually imploding now because what's happening is that Years ago, when I say years ago, 15, 20 years ago plus, the average age of somebody taking a policy out was, like 78, 80 years old. And as premiums got more expensive and they learned, the industry learned how to price those products, then that kept creeping down and down and down. Now the average is, somewhere around 60, early 60s, late 50s, give or take. What happened was they didn't quite get the actuarial statistics because it's a new industry. Like life insurance has been around forever because they know how long you're going to live and how long I'm going to live, right? Women always live longer than men and so on and so forth. But they didn't really know the claims experience for long-term care insurance, and they mispriced these products, and they kind of on the low side. So they were losing billions of dollars collectively, and it was just this tremendous outflow. And as a result, they had to keep raising premiums. So a lot of people have been priced out. So long-term care insurance is really in transition right now. And now the industry is gearing more towards life insurance with a long-term care rider, which is a subject for a whole nother show. But suffice to say, the industry is in transition.
Yeah, which I can see they would need to be with the rate that the senior population is growing, and now we're finding that people are living, I go into work and I work with a woman who's 99 years old, and she never thought she was going to be 99 years old, and frankly, she's not that happy about it, but it's different because sometimes they'll be 99 years old and sickly, and sometimes they'll be 98 and dancing, So I think that with people living longer, it really is important to learn more about these products and these things that can happen. And especially, I think a lot of the senior care industry needs to be revamped just because there's more seniors, And
Yeah, absolutely. It's in terms of demographics, how many baby boomers are turning, 60-something, 65, whatever, every single day. Thousands every single day.
Yeah, and I look at 60, and it's not as far away as it used to be. It's far enough.
Well, it's about 30 years away for you, right?
Yeah, 30 years, yeah, absolutely.
Least,
you can come on my show anytime you want. So what I try and do when I do these shows is to kind of talk to the people that are like us, that, like I have teenagers upstairs and my mom downstairs.
Right,
and
sandwich generation.
Yeah. I'm the ham and cheese. But to just bring the mindset of how important it can be. So let's assume that something tragic happens and you haven't prepared. What are the options for a family in those cases? Are you able to speak to that?
Yeah. So there's the preemptive planning, and that's great. So all things being equal, you'd rather do the preemptive planning and get things, in place prior to a crisis situation. But absent that, there's still a lot of things that we can do to save assets, because the Medicaid rules and regs, the book on Medicaid, not like the IRS code, which is, pretty big in itself, but it's still pretty big. It's still, this thick of things you can do and things you can't do. So they give us guidelines about how we can protect assets, what works, what doesn't work. Medicaid is essentially about discretion. If you're a single person, I'll explain the difference between single people and spousal situations. For single people, you can't have any discretion over the money. You can only have $2,000, and that's it. So if you have more than $2,000, the government says, don't come looking to us. Spend your money. When you're down to $2,000, come back and see us. Oh, by the way, if you own a home, we're going to put a lien on that house as well. So what can you do? Well, there are still things that we can do to legitimately spend the money, legitimately do things to protect it. There's a certain type of a trust that we can utilize. The end result, without getting too technical and without boring the heck out of you and watching you fall asleep.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
I like
watching
following.
you're too kind. You're too kind. The end result is we can knock the nursing home bill down by 1/2. For single people, in spousal situations, whole different story. For the 5-year look-back rule. So if you go into a nursing home and the day before you give all your assets to your daughter, can't do that, right? 5-year look-back. But for spousal situations, it's different. There's no penalty for transfers between spouses. So there's a way to position assets, even if you have $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 plus, you can still save all the assets and save the primary residence for spousal situations. In most spousal situations, we can save all the money.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
That is amazing.
And the rules changed drastically in 2006. But they change mostly for single people, not as much for spousal situations.
So when you hear the term pay down or pay down,
Spend down.
spend down,
Yeah.
so that's when somebody has more than $2,000.
Yeah. So, for instance, you can the things you can do, things that most people know. You can prepay a funeral. You can, pay bills, like credit card. If you have credit card
Yeah.
bills, you can do things like that. You can't make gifts to children. You can't, even a lot of people, and sometimes not in anticipation of going into a nursing home, they paid for a granddaughter's wedding. They paid for a grandchild's college tuition. That money has to come back, and that actually disqualifies them for Medicaid.
Yeah, I learned that recently, that I think they used a car as an example, that if you buy someone a car
Right.
within that 5-year period, they have to give the money back or the car back or something like that.
Right.
Which seems a little extreme.
It really, I mean, it's like the long arm of Uncle Sam, just, yeah.
But it's good to know that there are ways that you can work to prevent that from happening.
There are. So for spousal situations, there's a lot more we can do. For single people, less. But it's a stupid question. Do you want to spend $12,000 or $6,000 a month in a nursing home? So if you can knock the nursing home bill down by 1/2, that's not so bad.
Do you think, and this is just a weird question that popped into my head, do you think that with the rate that the elderly or seniors population is growing, that nursing care is going to become more expensive or less expensive?
Well, it's increased way beyond the cost of living. So, I mean, if you look at cost of living, it's about 1-2%, whatever it is. I'm not an economist, but I know when I had, I actually started doing this when I had some hair, so that's how long ago it was. And nursing homes were running around $6,000 or $7,000 a month, five to $6,000 a month. Now they're $12,000 to $14,000 a month, and so it wasn't 40 years ago, right?
Right.
So in the last 20 years, it's doubled, which is more than inflation. And how many people can afford to spend $12,000 or $14,000 a month in a nursing home? Not that many.
No, I wouldn't imagine
Yeah.
many could at all. I couldn't. Not that I plan to go, but so I'm trying to think of what other questions I have, because it's a good topic. It's something that is so important.
There's always so people often ask, what do we do, and how do we do it, and
Yep.
all that. So again, there's always a legal component, there's always a financial component, and there's always a healthcare component. So a lot of times people are saying, okay, so I want to stay out of a nursing home, so what do we do? Okay, so proper legal documents and structuring or restructuring assets. But it's keeping people out of a nursing home. So a lot of times people need care. They're not quite ready to go into a nursing home, and maybe they don't want to go into assisted living, or maybe assisted living is right for them, or maybe it's home health care, maybe it's adult daycare. So it's freeing up to optimizing care dollars. So it's great. Let's get some money if they're amenable to it. Let's get some money out of their name, and then we can utilize some of the money that's in their name to pay for their care, to have home health care people, if they're not doing well, home health care people come in, VNA or nurses or whatever, adult daycare. So it's really keeping people out of a nursing home, because that's the last place people, of course, want to go.
Right. I just thought of something else. I love that. I keep thinking of things. So if you're someone who, say, has recently had a stroke, or you were walking and you had a fall and you can't walk anymore, and the visiting nurses are pushing to put you into a rehab for a few weeks or a month,
Right.
and the family's resistant to use the money for care, that's something that can even be pre-planned for.
Oh yeah, all of it. I mean, with enough lead time, you can almost plan for anything. But the nice part about this type of planning, it's not cookie cutter, and it's always fluid, because you can do all the planning in the world, but you don't really know what's going to happen 5 years from now, 2 years from now. I mean, my mom, had the stroke, was doing okay 5 years ago, but we never anticipated, this happening. So it almost has to be fluid. You almost have to be able to roll with the punches, and that's why you free up care dollars and try to optimize care dollars. But even the money you gave away, it's not like it goes into a black hole. It can come back.
Right.
So that's the nice part about it too.
And you mentioned briefly, I want to put you on the spot
Yeah.
now, that you're looking into doing workshops at different councils on aging
Yes.
and different places, I assume assisted livings or things
Right,
like that, I'm not
right.
sure. But
Yeah, yeah.
So could you talk about that a little
Yeah,
bit, or
yeah.
should we get John on the camera?
No, come on in, John. So we're doing workshops. There's a lot of misinformation out there, a lot. There are attorneys who maybe can draft wills, and maybe draft trusts or powers of attorney, but they don't know Medicaid planning. And there are attorneys who try to fake it. They're trying to fake it. You can't fake this stuff. Either you're doing it full time or you can't do it at all. So it really is. There's financial planners out there that have less than honorable intentions. Maybe they're trying to keep assets under management. They're trying to peddle annuities, for instance, or whatever. So there's a lot of misinformation, sometimes even malpractice information out there. Or they're relying on their brother-in-law who went to a seminar a couple of years ago. Their brother-in-law, the plumber, who went to a seminar last year. The know-it-all brother-in-law. So what we try to do is take a kind of a proverbial snapshot, see what they're trying to accomplish, and then really just take our time and come up with a game plan. And that's all we do. Sometimes they're doing all the right things, and sometimes there are huge holes that we have to plug up, and our job is to just identify areas of exposure and just plug up those holes.
Yeah, and I think I can relate to when you say, financial planners and what they're looking for. Recently
Not to knock financial planners.
No, they're great.
I don't want the financial planning industry,
coming down on
emailing.
you.
Yeah.
No, but really, recently, when I had my kids, so 17, 16 years ago, whatever, I got a life insurance policy, and
Yeah.
I'd been paying on it month and month and month and month.
Right.
The policy had no value.
Yeah.
When I retire, I'm not getting anything from this policy.
Right.
So we did have a financial planner come in, and I revamped all my stuff, but I didn't put in long-term care and things like that
Right.
because, why am I thinking about that?
Right.
So I can see who you talk to is important. That person, I love him, but he could have said, hey, what about when you retire and you need to be in a nursing home? Do you want to
Right.
think about that?
Yeah.
Because I do have other plans through my paycheck that pay for certain things. Like if I'm, short-term, long-term disability, things like that. Now I have my life insurance policies, but I don't want my kids to get stuck with my bills.
Right,
Even though they'll be rich and famous and you can do it for me. But it's that
You're
kind of.
rich and famous.
I am.
Just like your mother,
I'm
yeah.
pretty big, yeah. But so I think that what is your target, I guess? What's the target age base that you look to speak to?
All over the map. So here's what we're seeing people. You could be 60 years old and not in good health, right? You can be 90 and walking 5 or 10 miles a day. Or we have I think 7 or 8 clients that are active clients, not have passed away. Active clients that are 100 years old plus. So it's all over the map. But it's mostly the adult children who are kind of driving the bus. So, I mean, if you're 90 years old, it's your 65-year-old adult, child or daughter or son or whatever, that's kind of, driving the bus, proverbially driving the bus and bringing you in, and we're bouncing, because they're always deferring to their children, especially as you get older. A lot of times you defer to your children, like your mother always defers to you, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
Not.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. There's
Yeah.
certain situations she'll come to me for, mostly the medical, but if it's something else, she'll go to my sisters
There
or my
you go.
brother. But it's a lot of that. She does look to me more now, and especially in this role.
Right.
So that's why I love when I learn things. One of my rules is I don't recommend people that I wouldn't send my mother to.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it's important for me to get the information out.
And the adult children are integral to the plan, because if they're the trustees of trust, you trust are just that. You have to trust the person, right? So you have to have a trusted child, and you have to take family dynamics into consideration. For instance, we have children that are incarcerated. We have children that are going through nasty divorces, bankruptcy. So the nice part about this planning, it's not cookie cutter, and you have to kind of customize a plan based upon different family dynamics. I know it's hard to believe, but sometimes kids don't get along, so you have to plan for that. So there's all sorts of ingredients that go into the final plan.
Okay. that just made me, I probably shouldn't even say this out loud. My mom has me and my brother on a lot of her stuff because she thinks I'd be the first one to pull the plug, and my brother's supposed to be the voice of reason.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
But things like that, and it's important to think, I mean, it's a joke in our family, but it's important to think that way. If you think that there's one child that's going to get mad at everybody else and
Right.
that whole thing. And I've seen a lot, even in my own family, in which, you know, even with a will, a parent passes and leaves their children in the house, and then the kids are all fighting over the house,
Right.
and then they're not talking for the next 20 years, things like that.
We've
So
had families come to fisticuffs. I mean, over sometimes it's not over a lot of money. It's over. One story is a toolkit. So we had two huge. When I say huge, these guys are like 6'5", you know, two brothers. And they actually came to fisticuffs over a toolkit. Now, it was a nice toolkit, you know, a lot of tools. Like, Dad promised me the toolkit. No, Dad promised me. And we had to call the cops. They were fighting over a toolkit.
Yeah.
So it happens.
Yeah, strange things
Yeah.
do happen in financial planning.
Yeah.
So now when somebody, you know, they sit down and they're like, all right, Mom, Dad, we're going to go and talk to these people. Is there a consultation? Is there a consultation fee? Like
Free consultation.
So there
Always
are
a free consultation
consultations.
because we need to take a snapshot. We ask them to fill out a financial page, a few pages. We have to know who, first of all, how old the people are, what their health is, who the players are, who the children are, any other special considerations. Sometimes we have children, again, that have special needs.
Yep.
Because that's a whole nother
Yeah, we didn't
piece
talk
of the
about
plan.
that.
Yeah, there's all sorts of, yeah, exactly. So there's all sorts of, there are trusts, and then there are layers of like sub-trusts that we can implement. Again, it's all about customizing a program based upon what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay, we are unfortunately running out of time, but you just brought up something that I remember that we had talked about, and that was the families that do have children with special needs and
Yeah.
how to plan for them to go forward. So you have an expertise in that area as well.
Yes.
Which is important. I have a family member who, my brother's wife's brother, he has Down syndrome, and his parents are well into their 80s now. They might
Right.
be close to 90, and it's always of what's he going to do, where's he going to end up, how are they going to take care of him kind of situation. So that's a huge, important component
Huge.
as well. So it's
Yeah.
good to know that you have that in your, I don't know, toolkit, let's
Yes,
call it,
yeah.
without punching each other. But is there anything else you wanted to say quickly as we wrap up? or-
That's really it. That this is really not very. We're not as bad as going to the dentist. A lot of people dread doing this. Once they leave our office, and I'm assuming most elder law attorneys as well, or elder law offices, they feel a sigh of relief. It's not so bad, and it's good to address it and not wait for a crisis.
All right, great. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming. Again, this is Dave Corman from Generations Asset Preservation, and I'm Tammy. Have a great month.